The reason I was excited to talk about this is because there is a side of this when I first heard it. I've already said this, but I'll say it again. That when I first heard it, I was like, oh, this is a buyer brokerage agreement being broken and somebody going after their commission and saying, I've been wronged. Like, I want my commission. And when I heard this, I was going, oh, this will be interesting in the industry because this whole thing came out, right? Like the settlement all came out right when buyer brokerage agreements were, fully in effect. People had had them for, let's just say, a good solid year at that point in time and working with them. And here all of a sudden this thing hits the table.
Welcome everyone to 10 Tenths, where we coach real estate agents out of burnout into high-performing businesses that fuel their lives. As always, we are here with you. He is Garrett. I am Matt. And welcome, guys. Garrett, good morning to you, man.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Everything good in your world today?
Everything's good, man. You know, our ground is nice and firm and stable.
We've had earthquakes.
Experiencing a little shakiness, I've heard, over in California today.
They haven't actually landed in my backyard, but they've been just far enough away that it's like, oh, we had an earthquake, but we didn't feel anything. But man, they're all around it. We are the California is circling the wagons around Redding. That's what's happening.
Well, if you guys listen to this all the way through, that means there was probably no more shaky ground, or at least nothing significant enough to get us to stop. But hey, if this is your first time with us, we'd love for you to go check out 10tenths.co to see what we're all about. We also have a free webinar if you guys want to learn our engagement engine framework, which is our framework for building an incredible communication plan that is personalized to you so that you can lean into your zone of excellence. And you could probably find that there, or reach out to us if you have trouble finding all that stuff. Download our app. You can get access to it through there. We have many ways for you to get into that, but we'd love for you to go and take that, look at it, and join us for that and experience what we got inside the 10 Tenths world. But we got a fun topic today. This is kind of outside the box, so to speak. And we're going to talk about a court case that took place in South Florida and ended up with a judgment, Garrett, of almost $48 million in favor of a real estate agent. This is going to be a fun one to dig into.
Yeah, this is, I think, I think one thing that's important as we start to dig into this, Matt, is the situation has been going on for a while. This, I know when I first heard this, I was like, oh, this is in response to buyer brokerage agreements and what's going on. And, a broker went after a buyer because maybe the buyer didn't use him. And he's like, I want my commissions. And there's so much more going on here. So as we start to talk about this and I just got to kind of make sure we're all starting from a clean slate here of this actually happened with a working relationship from 2018 almost to 2000, late 2019, and then a lawsuit that was filed in 2020 that went on for 6 years to figure out what was really going on and what was happening. And so well before all this buyer brokerage, everybody needs to have one, all this stuff. And I think when I first heard this, I initially was like, that's where this came from. This is what's happening. Everybody pay attention. And this is a much bigger thing. It walks along the same lines of, having a contract that protects people and sticking to contracts. But there's a whole lot more going on here with fraudulent companies or fictitious companies. And they went out of their way to not pay a commission.
Yes. Yeah, which is so fascinating too, when you look at the numbers of this and the whole thing. But the case is Goldstein versus Ezekiel. Goldstein being, Alexander Goldstein being the real estate agent down in Miami, and he was working with this client, I think it was Ruben Ezekiel, and they found this property listed at 2.9 million, wrote a contract, actively were negotiating it. Buyer said, they're not coming down anymore. I'm out. The seller came down to 2.8. Buyer's like, nope, I'm not going there. We're done. Less than 2 hours later, had his sister, who is licensed in Florida, write an offer for 2.8 under a fictitious company name that wasn't yet set up. It's like, oh, just write it under this LLC, which didn't exist yet. And they ended up closing on that property for 2.8, and he gave his sister $500. and saved himself, I think, what was like an $18,000 commission, which really didn't. I mean, and who knows if he actually really saved it? Like, we don't. This was 2020, so cooperating broker fees were definitely still a thing. So this could have been something that was already built into the price. Who knows? Maybe the listing agent gave a little discount because they didn't want as much fee. I don't really know the specifics of that. But what we do know is that a lawsuit was filed after some heckling back and forth, because Goldstein tried to like resolve this with buyers. Like, hey, dude, like, you went around my back and you bought this property. Like, I worked hard for you for years to find something and you just cut me out like that. Like, let's settle this thing up. And apparently the buyer was like, ha ha ha, well, what are you going to do? Sue me? Well, he did.
$48 million later.
And just this year, a jury awarded every single count, in this civil case, which added up to nearly $48 million. Now, obviously, there's going to be appeals and a lot of things. So this isn't necessarily money that is in the pocket of Goldstein here yet, or maybe, who knows? That's a lot of money. Who knows even if the buyer even has that.
If you budgeted properly and everything, you could make it last for a little while, but like, yeah, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is a lot of money. So that's kind of like the raw specifics of this case, Garrett. And the reason why we wanted to talk about it with all of you is, one, it's interesting to see this stuff. And two, I think it shows that there is a lot of depth and a lot of dimensions to client advisor relationships, right? Regardless of the pieces of paper that we sign to say that we're working with each other, there's a lot of depth and different dimensions and directions that anybody can take. Because I think a lot of times, Garrett, we play very surface level with a lot of things that happen in the real estate industry. Like, oh, if it doesn't work out, it's always the agent's fault. It's like, no, or the client's always right, or just buyers are liars, right? Or whatever, right? These blanket things that we put on things, I don't think that they make sense, and they set a precedent for ourselves in our industry that we're not paying attention to the nuances. Because here we have an agent who is arguably doing everything right, and the buyer actively went out to commit fraud against him and the listing agent, for that matter, like by trying to say, hey, let's use this LLC to shroud our own identity so that they don't recognize that we were already negotiating with them. Really, really crazy.
Well, and if you think about it, like in our world, Matt, there's a lot of opportunities that we enter into contracts that we don't even realize we're entering into contracts. They're small contracts. They might be that I'm dropping my car off and I'm signing an agreement that they have the rights to work on my car for the afternoon and take a look at it and maybe just do an inspection on it. There's a little contract we have that we sign there. There's very rarely do we get into contracts that have major repercussions to them if we are not following through on the contract. If you want to buy somebody's business, there are contracts and that we enter into in that process that if you decide to break those contracts, there's major repercussions that people can come back for crazy damages. And they look at damages in lots of different ways, from like money not received to right now to damage that's received for all future money that may have been occurred by you being able to make this deal come together. They're looking at it from all angles when all of a sudden you take a jury and get them involved in something like this. And I think the hard part that we don't understand is that most people entering into a real estate contract like this have never even thought about it on that level. They don't look at it as that. It's just this like, oh, we're just writing an offer. It's this thing. We're going to try to get a house. And all of a sudden the mindset of like, well, if I just cancel that, or if I just like walk away from it and then go back over here this way, what's the big deal? And you get a buyer going like, so sue me, bring it on. Like, what do you got? Well, you're not going to do that. And they're not looking at it as like, this is a business contract that you've entered into. You're entering into a negotiation with a company, again, working with another company in benefit of both a buyer and a seller. There are so many ways that damages can incur. And there's a reason that we have realtors overseeing all of this paperwork and all this stuff. This is a prime reason. It's funny, in the realtor getting rewarded, this is also a prime reason about why you have professionals overseeing all this stuff. Because imagine if there was no real estate agents involved and this gentleman who's willing to do this right here by being sneaky and pulling this kind of stuff. What would happen if it was just him and seller negotiating and all of a sudden putting somebody into a bad position? Like this moment, he took advantage of the buyer's agent, but what would stop him from taking advantage of the seller in this moment? And so I think that there's a lot of reasons that we have these contracts and we have all these things and these working relationships put into place. There's a reason that we're seeing buyer brokerage agreements start to, they are now the thing. And it's like, yeah, because for years we've done all this work with really no security that we're actually going to get paid. And it's like, well, what if we define these working relationships a little bit more? But I go back to like, obviously 48 million is a massive, massive, massive number. And there's, it's funny, you go look through Facebook and you look at all the comments, Matt, and people are like, I don't get it. Like the commission doesn't equal the punishment that's going on here. They did say, they were using this to set an example of like, don't do this. And again, this is where I think we misunderstand the severity of breaking a contract and looking at it as the words on paper and going, what's the big deal, to the major repercussions beyond. But it is interesting to see how some of the brokers are coming at this like, good for you, go get your money. And I don't know if this was about him getting paid on his commission more so than setting a standard of working relationships. And I think that kind of needs to be looked at a little bit, Matt, of like what was really trying to be accomplished here. And it was really reprimanding really bad behavior.
Oh yeah. The quote from the attorney, I think is really great. He says right here, this case was about righting a wrong and sending a message. South Florida is a serious place doing serious business at the highest levels. For far too long, Florida has carried a stigma as a sunny place for shady people, and we are not that. Brokers like Alex Goldstein, who built his career by playing it straight, should not have to watch their commission stolen through a fictitious LLC and a sister paid to pose as their replacement, or watch a defendant try to shape public opinion against him, because by the way, he went on local television for this. On local television during the case, the court ruled twice in our favor, and the jury saw it for what it was. The investors who finance these arrangements should take notice. So they're definitely trying to send a message.
I'm going to make a whole bunch of t-shirts, by the way, Matt, for each state. And the one for Florida is going to say, a sunny place for shady people.
I never heard that, but I think it's pretty funny.
I think every state should have a roast tagline, and that might be a roast tagline for Florida. I have a lot of Floridians that I'm friends with, so I'm not saying everybody, but there's a reason that might be funny.
Yeah, so Garrett, I think about a case like this. I'm like, okay, how does this relate to the average realtor out there? Because this is a rare case. And maybe not as rare as we think. I mean, many of you maybe have experienced this. I will say I've been involved with real estate fraud myself. Not me personally doing something, but we had a closing attorney. No, the guy's in jail now. There's a closing attorney who was referred to through people that we know and all this stuff. And he stole, clients' money. He basically was running checks. He was trying to basically run this like Ponzi scheme type of thing. And he did it had a title company and everything, legitimate companies that he started, but then ran this whole shell game. And so real estate is a massive industry, and it is open for people to come in and commit fraud. Just like any industry. Like we're seeing in headlines right now, $2.5 billion in healthcare fraud, 150 people being arrested right now for things like that. And if it's a big industry where there's big money moving hands, fraud is going to happen. Everybody knows it because on the bottom of your email, it says, do not trust wire instructions sent via email, right? And I think this case highlights the non-obvious forms of fraud that can happen in here. And while we can't protect ourselves from everything, and we can't protect our clients from everything, because you can only know so much. Like, for example, my clients who were involved in this thing, this was over a decade ago, by the way. We had no reason, like legitimate attorney, legitimate business license, all the things verified and checked out, right? Because he hadn't been caught on anything yet. It caught up to him years later. So things to be aware of. And I think, Garrett, circling this to the buyer broker agreement, which everyone's, oh, well, if there's buyer broker agreement, you're covered. No, A piece of paper is not going to protect you, for one. And if we look at it like that, as this continuous combative relationship of agent versus client, you're probably not going to have an enjoyable experience with your clients. Whereas if you get to know your clients at no matter what level they're playing at, you're probably going to have an okay experience. And yeah, you might get taken advantage of every now and then. I don't know anybody in business who hasn't had a situation, maybe not like this, but something happened where, gosh, somebody took advantage of me. You're not going to be able to block them all out, Garrett.
But I think with like the reason I was excited to talk about this is because there is a side of this when I first heard it. I've already said this, but I'll say it again. That when I first heard it, I was like, oh, this is a buyer brokerage agreement being broken and somebody going after their commission and saying, I've been wronged. Like, I want my commission. And when I heard this, I was going, oh, this will be interesting in the industry, because this whole thing came out, right? Like the settlement all came out right when buyer brokerage agreements were, fully in effect. People had had them for, let's just say, a good solid year at that point in time and working with them. And here all of a sudden this thing hits the table. And that's where, when I look at all the tagline, all the comments in here about, oh, he got paid, he got this, like, good for you for going and fighting with it. I don't want anybody listening to this to think that your buyer brokerage agreement that you have is going to lead you to a $48 million settlement. That is not what it's going to do. And I think you really need to pay attention to the working relationship with your client. You need to you can't just sit there and go, I got this buyer brokerage agreement, so I'm totally protected. And by the way, if they decide to screw me on this, I'm going after them. That is the worst thing you want to have with your business. There's a way bigger thing going on here. And so, one, do I support buyer brokerage agreements? Always have. I think there is something about having a working relationship with your client right from the beginning, where the stage is set of, you have hired me, you will be paying me for my services, and I'm here to show up and do a job for you. Any working relationship out there, whether you have a fence being built in your backyard, whether you're having, a new landscaping put in the front yard, whether you're having a new roof put on, there's a contract that you enter into of both parties saying, here's what we are willing to do, and we both agree, and we're going to follow through on it. If one doesn't pay at the end, they're going to get sued. If one doesn't follow through with the actual job, they're going to get sued. That's a relationship there. But when you look at something like this, I don't want anybody walking away from it going, oh, this is what my buyer brokerage agreement now means. Because what we do not need is an industry going, well, see what Goldstein and Ezekiel, that deal that happened, we're coming after you. You are going to cause more trouble than you think. This is why it's important. Go do the research on this and look through this of what led this to actually getting to this level here. Because when you got fictitious companies you're creating, when you are sneaky bringing in your sister who's a realtor, that you're just going to pay a flat fee to and be like, hey, I've already negotiated this whole thing. There's risk that this realtor took. We all take. You guys all take. I'm not a licensed realtor anymore, but all of you take as licensed realtors doing this job, putting this all together. There's reasons that we have E&O and all these things and all these moving parts. Then to have the rug pulled out from you on the very end and being gone around, it's not okay behavior. And that's the point of all this.
Yeah. And I think there's categorizing this into the two lessons you just highlighted. One, contracts that we form with our clients I think are there for us to be collaborative, right? They're not there to be, something that can protect us. And I agree with you. I don't want people reading into a case like this and being like, yeah, look, score one for the realtors. Because for the past several years, Garrett, a lot of the news articles and everything, a lot of the things happening in the real estate industry as a whole have kind of, in my opinion, been a lot of this industry versus everybody else type of stuff. And how is that working to the benefit of anybody? That's my question, right? Are we thinking about the consumers? And people will always, you say, oh, of course we're thinking about the consumers. That's why we're doing this, this, and this. I'm like, well, when was the last time a consumer was consulted on these things versus just all of us sitting in a room saying, hey, I think this is the right thing to do. And as realtors, you guys know, because you're out there every day working with the buyers and sellers, you guys know that relationships are the key to everything. And if we're asking good questions up front, if we're forming good relationships with our clients, 9.9 times out of 10, everything's going to be totally cool, right? We're going to get through things. And even if something doesn't work out, it's like, it's okay. That didn't work out. That's all right. We'll move on to the next. But every now and then, and I think this is another important note, is that you guys take on a lot of risk, right? And this is why real estate agents do get paid pretty well. This is why the commissions are high. There is a lot of risk in this form of service. There's risk of the time that you spend. And I think when you get into the punitive versus the compulsory damages, compensatory, I can't say that word, damages that were involved in this court case, is essentially Alex's team presented that like, hey, it wasn't just the commission. It was the opportunity cost of time. It's everything that's going on by not having the opportunity to do that. And if we do think about our profession as like, hey, when we are able to guide people to a successful purchase or a successful sale, like that adds value to our business overall. That's not a one and done. And so the risk of taking on clients, working with people, things working out, things not working out, things that we don't even see because a seller tried to lie. I've had that before too, a seller lying on a seller's disclosure. There's no way for us to know. That led to a lawsuit between the buyer and seller. Right. Yep. I mean, these things can happen and we always get pulled into it as the real estate agent. And so I commend all of you for sticking your necks out there because it is a risky business in a way, but it's also a wonderful business. And I don't want you thinking that because these cases, exist, that it takes anything away from this business.
Well, and this is where I go back to this $40 million, award that happened with this. Settlement that came out of it. The interesting that's happening with this is that when you look at the comments that come up, like I'm hanging out on Facebook, which is an area I never go and read the comments, but it's fascinating because this is how it can get twisted. I hope this case goes viral and puts clients on notice. We're not a free service. It's like, whoa, hold on a second here. There's a bigger picture. There's so many laws that were broken, fraudulent companies, all kinds of misrepresentations that came down. There's another one here that got my attention, which was should have been 100 million. Great news, time to file some lawsuits. So there's just, these are those moments that make me step back and be like, okay, as the real estate agent community out here, yes, it's good to know that the legal system will have your back, but this is way more than just you worked for free and didn't get paid. There's way more happening here. And
Garrett, I want to highlight too, like the reason why this worked and we went, and good news, like jury trial too. This wasn't just a judgment that came from a judge or a panel. This is a jury trial, but Alex had the documentation, right? He was running a process where he was documenting everything that was going along. He was running a comprehensive process to help this buyer, and he had the proof that he was doing the work. A lot of these agents, Garrett, that I think you're reading comments for, like, oh, time to go, file some lawsuits. Like, do you even know if you were following through with those buyers, or was there a gap in your own service, right? Alex was able to prove zero gap, right? And I think that's something that we should also take note of and learn from, is that this was a good agent from what I understand from reading the case, by the way. I don't know Alex personally, right?
So it's a good reminder. It says the jury found Ezekiel liable for fraud, tortuous interference, conspiracy to defraud, and conspiracy to interfere in a business relationship. There's a lot going on here. Like, yeah, it wasn't just like, hey, we're going to go this direction. And
it was like, oh, we went to an open house and sorry, oh my gosh, we wrote an offer with the agent that was there. We forgot, like.
That's a really good example, Matt. Like, it is not that. It's not that you've been putting in all your time and all your effort and working with these people, and all of a sudden they're like, oops, like we wrote a contract and we didn't even realize it. And that is not what this is. And again, the reason that we are talking about it right now is because I'm seeing too many people that think that's what it is. I'll be honest with you. I thought that's what it was right when it first came up. Like, yeah, that for me, my brain went right to it going like, oh my gosh, this is people going after people for buyer brokerage agreements. And it's not it. It is though. Again, I think that you start to look at it and everybody's going, oh, he'll never get paid out on all this stuff. Who knows about that? And
the headlines perpetuate that, Garrett.
Oh,
So I mean, it's
100%.
easy to think that that's what it is, and I think what one thing I will note about this too is like, I don't think there's a way you can protect yourself against these types of things necessarily. If someone, the people who are really good at fraud are really good at it for a reason, right? And it's a shame that they use their knowledge and their expertise to defraud people, right? But they're good at it for a reason. And I don't think you could protect yourself against this, but I do think this highlights that you can protect yourself against a buyer going astray by making sure you're providing value at every step of the journey, that you're really thinking about this. And like, how would you handle a buyer if you knew that commission was, quote, guaranteed? Like if you knew you were getting paid, would you spend a little bit more time? Would you spend the extra 5 minutes before the weekend sending them some open houses to go to? I mean, these little things that do protect you in a client relationship because you're adding value so that the client wants to work with you. If someone's trying to take advantage of you and commit fraud, they're likely going to be able to do it unless you're able to identify certain red flags, which based on this, I don't know if there's anything Alex could have done to, I mean, they were almost an agreement.
But this is why an example has to be made when it gets caught. And this is when you look at, like, Matt, as you were talking about your who is it that was helping you that got arrested?
Oh, the attorney, the closing attorney. Yeah.
So you look at this and you're like, oh, but he had this business and this business and this business, as it was a shell game and money was being moved, here and here and here. I'm a pretty creative person, and I will find my way through stuff that most people don't find their way through. That is so much, like, the amount of work just hearing that to kind of go like, was it a planned out thing, or was it like one of these things that all of a sudden he found himself going, I guess I could pull a little bit of money from over here, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, now we've dug ourselves in a complete hole, and were we really that creative to plan that out, or did we get ourselves into a bad situation? But when those things happen, when they do get caught, I would hope there's a $48 million, settlement on a reward on the other side of it, because it is so bad, that type of stuff, when it happens. And it's way bigger than just a buyer brokerage agreement. There's a way bigger picture going on here.
I mean, in my opinion, I think that this buyer is lucky at this point that there were no laws broken.
Yeah.
Because if there's anything criminal that's in here, like, that's not going to be good. And sometimes civil cases can all of a sudden bring about, criminal charges depending on statute of limitations and all that kind of thing. And I think it's also important to remember that just because you're signing legal documents, like these are all civil agreements that you have with people. These aren't, lawful, like, criminal type of things that we're doing. And so a lot of times people don't decide to pursue civil stuff because I can't imagine what the attorney fees are on this 6-year lawsuit, right? I mean, that's probably why the damages are so high. I mean, gosh, if anybody here has been involved in any type of legal scuffles before, you already know how expensive attorney fees can be. So
I had to go through it a handful of years back. I know exactly how much attorney fees are, and it's one of those things that you don't even realize how fast the dollars are adding up. So I can't imagine 6 years. But you can't.
And this is why
imagine.
You see a lot of settlements too, right? I mean, settlements happen not necessarily because someone's admitting a wrong. It's because it's the least expensive option.
Yeah.
Which that gets into a whole nother discussion about how the whole legal system is set up, because you see settlements happen. You're like, that makes no sense. That person did nothing wrong. It's like, yeah, well, they would have spent 3 times as much if they went to prove that they didn't do anything. And a settlement is not an admission of guilt. It's just a way to say, hey, okay, is everybody cool? All right, let's move on. Obviously, this did not get to a settlement. It could have, but it didn't.
So all in all on this, we appreciate you guys kicking this around with us right now. This has been something that Matt and I, this came out, well, I mean, what was it? Early June is when this kind of hit our world.
Yeah, I think it was a few months ago. Things like this fascinate me. Garrett and I, we love talking about this. And today we're like, hey, why don't we just talk about this on the podcast? Because I think this is just a fascinating case. And it's and also, if you guys run into this, we wanted to help demystify the headline so you're not thinking like, oh man, like agents are in power now, we can go sue all the buyers who decide not to work with us. Like, no, that's not what this is about.
Well, this circled back around as a topic because I was talking with my friend David Basla up in Eugene, Oregon, who, again, if you ever need a great realtor up there, David's amazing. But it was funny is because he was like, have you heard anything crazy happen in real estate lately? I'm like, oh, I got a headline for you. Here you go.
Yeah, I know, right? This is a crazy thing, man. So it's like these things happen.
For all of you tuning in right now, thank you so much for taking your time with us. You know, as Matt and I fully believe, your business should fuel your life, not consume it. And if that sounds good to you, we are here to help you. We are here to help bring the best out of your business and your world. And we appreciate you tons. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you that have YouTube and you have decided to tune in, Matt's daughter has decided to join him for the end of the podcast. With all that being said, thanks so much, everybody. Matt, thank you.
Have a great one, everybody. Thanks for joining us.